Hello everyone, this is Willa Latham and I love antique porcelain. And I had a plan for today, but I changed my mind because I came across this story that I loved so much I had to tell you. So a while ago, the mother of a friend of mine asked me if I could come over and look at an inheritance she got. And she had a whole bunch of porcelain there. So I traveled up, had a look, and it turned out that the great-great-grandfather of this woman was a little known but very influential pioneer in the British Industrial Revolution. Now, you may have heard of the Industrial Revolution. It was the early 19th century when the steam engine started to become very popular, and it fueled a huge industry. And suddenly Britain and the Western world became very rich. And this man had grown up in a very modest family, and before the year 1800 he would have probably been quite poor the rest of his life. But this was the Industrial Revolution, so if you were clever and you were enterprising, you could actually go very far. Now, this man did something very important. He invented the process by which you could produce linseed oil on a very big industrial scale. Now, why was that important? Because the steam engine needed linseed oil to run smoothly. And linseed oil had been very difficult to make, so there was never enough of it. So therefore, they couldn't run enough steam engines. So once they had a lot of linseed oil, they could make many more steam engines. And for instance, in 1825, the first steam engine train that carried passengers in Britain, it's called Locomotion 1, was run on the linseed made by the gentleman who owned this china. And for instance, another important thing he did was he supplied the linseed oil to Sir James Clark Ross, who went to the North Pole in 1831, and he located the Northern Magnetic Pole, which was one of those early 19th century expeditions that were very, very famous and important. So anyway, this man, he suddenly got rich overnight. He suddenly had a lot of money, so he got married, they bought a big house, and what do you do with a big house? You fill it with beautiful porcelain. So I'm going to show you a few of these things. There are these two teacups here. I'll show it to you. And they're very big. See, they're huge. They're called breakfast cups because they're used for breakfast, for very milky tea. And if you look well at these cups and the difference between them, you see that one is very worn and the other one isn't. Now, my suspicion is that Mr. Linseed Oil liked his cup a lot more than Mrs. Linseed Oil, just because it's so big. It's not really made for little ladies' fingers. We know from the family that he used these cups his whole life, and then when he was old and he died, all his stuff was packed up into the attic, and nobody touched it for more than 100 years. And it was only unpacked a few years ago. So it's a beautiful Imari pattern. It was made by the Crown Derby factory in about 1810, 1815. So just about when this man would have become, when he would have started his business. And then I have this very beautiful tea set. Well, it's not really a tea set anymore. It's just the leftovers. Probably almost everything got broken. So all I have is a teacup and a saucer, and look, it's very beautifully made. Look at this beautiful handle here. It's called the Pembroke shape. And I have a few plates and a bowl, perfect for fruit. That's all that's left. Everything else probably got broken. It was made by Colport in about 1820, 1825. It would have been a very expensive set at the time. And it's beautifully hand painted. Look at that. And you may have wondered, why were tea sets and dinner sets so popular in those days? And there's a reason for that. Of course, the industrialization meant that people could produce things much easier, but also there was a huge demand for it because the Industrial Revolution allowed a whole generation, like the gentleman who owned this, to move up in society from relatively poor to becoming, a prosperous middle class. It's similar to what's now happening in China, in India, in many countries over the world. It's always happened like that. And there's another reason why home entertainment became so important, became so fashionable in the early 19th century. Because if you run a business, you need to make business deals. And how do you make the best business deals? Over dinner. And if you want to build a strong industrial family, you need to get the right people to fall in love with each other. And how do you do that? Well, that's for the mothers to arrange over tea. So home entertainment became incredibly important to further this new middle class. So that was my story for today. You can find all these beautiful items in my shop. They're for sale with the story. I'll write it down at gentlerattleofchina.com. You can find me also on Instagram. I post every single day. And click subscribe now on YouTube if you're watching this, because I post every week. And I hope you enjoyed this. Please come again. Thank you. Bye-bye.